tragedy almost struck this morning.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. Got up, dogs situated, got them handled, went to my kitchen, got out my French press, got it ready to go, pulled out my bag of coffee beans to throw in my grinder. There was just enough left for one press.
Oh. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, I like, and that is a good indication of how my week has gone. Like, I never let myself get low on certain things. Like in the Alexander McKenzie household, like you don't get low on coffee, you don't get low on lube, and you don't get low like a few other things.
Mm-hmm.
Almost ran out of coffee on a Sunday.
Whew, man. Yeah, that'd have been anxiety-inducing.
I don't know what I would have done. You might have had to handle the show on your own this morning. It might have just been you.
What would I have done in that situation?
A soliloquy.
First of all, I'd have been in denial.
Right.
So after I got past the denial, then I would have moved into panic. Then I would have moved into anger.
I feel like
these are the stages of grief, aren't they?
I think so. Is that what you go through whenever one of us isn't here? Because that's what I'm going through right now since we're without Craig.
Yeah.
I'm still in the denial phase. I'm just gonna pretend like he's here.
I'm stuck in the anger phase.
Is that you're just mad?
Yeah, I'm just.
You're gonna
pissed.
kick over one of the the comic booths at the shop.
Well, to smite him, my book of the week is gonna be the one he had planned on doing.
Oh,
so that's what he gets.
Hey, look, it's all fair game.
Yeah.
He could have claimed it. So hey everybody, this is episode 192 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As usual, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And as we alluded to, we are -1 Craig today. Our boy doesn't feel good. He took a sick day, so hopefully he's getting some rest, plopped on a couch, drinking something that makes his tummy feel good, watching some baseball, living that good life to the best he can.
Yeah.
I picture him with one of those little ice packs on his head, just sitting there, just with the little thing on top. That's what I imagine he's doing right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Either that or one on his belly.
maybe both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some type of Donald Duck remedy. Speaking of him watching baseball, did you see that? Like,
the answer to that is no.
Okay, so his team is the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
As if folks at home don't know, apparently they had a 16-inning game last week. Which wasn't really supposed to be possible because apparently they changed some of the rules. I have enough trouble making it through 9 innings watching baseball, so I can't, like, anybody who stayed for the full 16 innings, kudos to them.
Wow.
I can't. That's too much.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just not going to say anything about that.
Yeah.
That's quite a thing before I start comparing sports and whatnot.
Right. Well, other than that, how's your week been, brother?
It's been going well. Yeah. It's been going well. It's an interesting week, and next week's going to be even more interesting. And
just doing some traveling, or
no things I can't divulge.
Gotcha.
But it's interesting.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So this is a good things are happening.
Yeah.
I like it when
Yeah.
good things happen in Matt Trogdon's life.
Yeah. And the temperature's supposed to be dropping, so that's a good thing.
I know.
It's
dude.
been hot as just stupid hot.
Yeah, dumb. Like 107, 108 heat index kind of weather.
Yeah.
So
I'm done with that.
Yeah, no, me too, dude. It's been crazy this year though, because like states up north, like I was talking to, like, you know, our buddies Bill Zanowitz and a buddy of mine from Wisconsin, Arnie, like up north, it's been hotter up there than it has been down here at times, which is weird and wacky and bizarre land.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my girlfriend lives in Chicago, and we've had those conversations.
yeah. And especially like in the middle of one of those cities where it's nothing but concrete and just hell around you. Ugh.
Yeah.
Icky. So yeah, Wendy also lives in Chicago. She's been saying some similar stuff. It's just been miserable and stupid.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to Weather Talk today.
Right. Hey, we've got sports, we've got weather. We're covering all our bases. This is what happens when Craig stays home.
Yeah.
Nah, dude, my week has been long. Back in school, getting back into it. As I was telling you earlier, second weekend, and I'm already ready to be fucking done with this shit. I hate it.
That's the way I understand school works.
Yeah.
But regardless of the year.
Yeah, just it's my last one. Senior-itis is kicking in hard. But I did get a chance to read in a few comics, which is the whole purpose of our little gathering here as we sit at the table together is to talk about comics. For those of you who have long listened to the show, you know what the deal is. We're going to drop a little short stack on you, give you a kind of a window into what we've been reading without going too deep into these things. But inevitably, there's no way to talk about comics or movies or books or anything without spoiling a little bit. So handy dandy spoiler warnings. We'll say what the books are before we get into them. That way you have a fair chance to hit the skip button if you need to, or hit the pause button, go handle your business, and then come back. But what'd you get read this week, man?
Well, for my short stack, 3 things. One, from Image Comics, That Texas Blood, number 9.
Yeah.
This is from Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips. Small town deputy sheriff story. They're detective stories, essentially. This is the second arc. It's a flashback to when the main character really comes into his own as a law enforcement officer, and they're just starting to investigate some possible satanic activity.
Ooh.
And it harkens back to the satanic panic era in this country for me.
The 90s.
And 90s, 80s,
1700s.
late 70s is when the satanic panic specifically coincided with the nationwide news media type atmosphere. That's a somewhat fascinating time for me because it's so absurd, and the things that the absurd things that people will convince themselves are real.
Yeah.
That's a prime example of that. And of course now it's a joke. People make jokes about the Satan and devil worshipers. Back then, people were very convinced it was real and that Satan worshipers were in every neighborhood.
I mean, is it a joke though? Like just thinking about in the past years with like the QAnon bullshit and the this flux of internet people who actually believe that a certain segment of the society worships the devils and eats babies. They believe that shit, and it's I would like to think that we're past it, but I just don't know that we are.
You're always going to have. Well, I'm not saying it's 100% over. Nothing's ever 100% over. It doesn't matter how much you prove it's not real. People, but
right.
By in total, now it's made light of.
Yeah. Okay.
And you've got celebrities walking around in Slayer T-shirts, where back in the 80s and 90s, if you wore a Slayer T-shirt, people legitimately considered, that guy probably worships Satan. Well, now, the Kardashians wear them.
No, they don't. Stop.
They do.
Don't say it.
These pictures are out there.
If you say it, it makes it real.
So that's that book I really like anyway, but this particular subject matter in this one, it's a particular interest to me. The other 2 books I read, one was from Marvel. This is Cable Reloaded. This is number 1. It's written by Al Ewing, and the artist on this one is, got to look it up because I momentarily forgot, Bob Quinn.
Oh, yeah.
So this is Old Man Cable. In the X storyline, we had young Cable. Old Man Cable is back in action, got the team together, and they are on an intergalactic mission. Not a bad read. Al Ewing, everybody knows about Al Ewing's reputation of delivering great stories. This one's solid. There's a lot of humor in it. The subject of pouches is breached a couple of times.
As well it should be.
So props to Al Ewing for just addressing that head on.
God, I love the book you're about to talk about.
Number 3,
I love it so
Bittersweet, much. Because it's the third in this 3rd issue series, Barbaric. This is the Michael Morrissey book. He's the writer. The artist is Nathan Gooden. And this has been a surprise hit for the market, and they've already committed to a lot more barbaric stories for next year. Apparently, Michael Morrissey is committed for the rest of the year, so he can't release any more until next, which is a real bummer because I absolutely adored this story. And Owen the Barbarian is now one of my new favorite characters that there are today. And this one, did you read this, Caleb?
I haven't yet, but go ahead. No, dude, go ahead. It's literally the first thing I'm going to read when I get home this afternoon.
The artwork's fantastic. The storyline is great. Very easy to follow. It is a barbarian story. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's just really fun. But Owen's attitude is so down to earth and identifiable for me. It just cracks me up. And there's this one panel in here that I think sums up his attitude. You know, he's in this storyline, he's fighting against like this, I don't know, I guess you'd call it a demon horde somewhat. And he is facing off against one of the lead demons, and the lead demon goes into a soliloquy to justify what they're doing to him. Our purpose is a righteous one, you animal. The God of those cast out called upon me. He called me to lead his people to the light, and fuck off. Owen cuts him off. I just love it, man. He's got no time. He has no time for this.
Dude, I'm about a week behind on all my books right now, and so
man.
yeah, but like that one, I specifically moved that one up to the front, because same. I can't wait to get more of these. We always do like a and we just did our halftime show, but at the end of the year we always do our wrap up, and I'm gonna be hard pressed to find a funnier sequence of panels.
They're so good.
In the first issue where he's arguing with the axe about what constitutes evil so he can kill somebody, and the axe won't let him, like, still to this day, like, that lives in my brain. Like, I laugh about it just randomly, and usually at school, and then I can't tell anybody what I'm laughing about because none of them will understand.
Man, this issue is so good. There's so many other things I don't want to spoil.
Right. I'll go home and read it and then call you this afternoon. We can
Outstanding.
We'll record a recap. Can I see the cover of that Texas Blood? So that's fun. Number one, it's a great cover.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second time I've seen an homage to the American Gothic in comics this week.
Yeah. I saw. What was the other one?
Because
I've seen it too.
As soon as I thought that, I can't like plug it in my brain.
Yeah, I've seen it too.
But that's the second book that homaged the American Gothic, which is awesome. Fun stuff. Well, dude, since you you felt the urge, the need, and you were motivated, really compelled to say good things about Al Ewing, I want to jump on that train with you. I read this week Guardians of the Galaxy number 17. This is by Al Ewing, obviously Juan Frigeri, with Federico Blee wrapping up that little creative team. Are you reading Guardians right now?
No, I'm not.
Dude,
I've heard it's great.
It is fantastic. It's fun. It's energetic. They're doing bananas crazy things. And the cool thing is Al Ewing is spreading himself kind of all over the universe. Like, he's got these little sub-teams of the Guardians. So, one's over here. But it all revolves right now around the fact that Dormammu has taken over Ego, the living planet, and is trying to use that and to bring in his nexus, his ether realm into the universe. And of course, interestingly enough, Doctor Strange is not in this. You'd think he would be, because anytime Dormammu usually tries to break through, Doctor Strange gets involved. But there is another Doctor who has injected himself in the mix, and that is none other than Doctor Doom.
Heard about that.
And it's badass. It's funny because he does not get along with anybody. Like, there's one scene in this where the team is disagreeing with him, and he's going to take a little sub-team off and do their thing. And Gamora, it was supposed to do something for him, and is just not. And he's like, it's okay. I'm more qualified to do it anyway. I'll do it. Like, you just go sit down somewhere. But so in this book, dude, basically they are fending off annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it, now, like I said, this is one of those little neat spoiler warnings. And by the way, Rocket Raccoon, totally on Team Doom. He's just like, look, I don't trust him, but he's right. And, Rocket also always thinks he's right. So it's just masterminding this. They get into some of the history where apparently Ego, the Living Planet, and Galactus were part of this universal spanning, like, sub-team. Or, like, little... I keep saying sub-team like that's a real word. It's not. They were they have this, like, treaty or this organization that helps watch over the universe before Thor killed Galactus for going purple again. He set up Ego to where if Ego needed to, he could have basically like form this giant celestial body around his planet head, making him just hyper powerful and everything. Well, by the end of this book, Dormammu has a giant celestial body and is wreaking all kinds of havoc. It's like
that's referenced in the Cable book. All this,
this
whole storyline ties into the Cable book.
Nice. Yeah. See, I didn't know that. Like this is the kind of book you just have to listen to metal to. Mm-hmm. Like you have to crank up. Like I don't know. something insane like Demon Force or Dragon Force or something to listen to while you're reading that. Bouncing over to The Distinguished Competition, another book that I'm really, really excited about, Superman and the Authority, number 2, I should actually. This is obviously Grant Morrison, Mikhail Janin, but so in this one they kind of did this thing. It's like a getting the team together book, which sometimes can work out great. I like getting the team together sometimes. Sometimes I think it's sloppy. They did something really cool in this one. For each getting the team together moment, they had a different artist do it. So you have, like I said, Mikhail Janin doing the main overall story, like did the first issue, but they have Fico Asio who did one, Evan Cagle, Travel Foreman did a story in this, and Jordi Belair, Sebastian Ching, Dave Stewart, and Alex Sinclair all handled the colors on it. So this is a different version of Superman, not your main Superman in continuity right now. He's kind of an old, very distinguished looking gentleman, and he's gotten together with none other than Manchester Black. If for Authority fans, you know who I'm talking about. And Manchester Black, villain, like bad dude, not somebody you'd think Superman would team up with, but he needs him because of his brain and powers and everything. So they're going to put together a team of Steel, and this is not, the Steel you're thinking of.
John Henry?
This is not John Henry Irons. This is his niece. So
okay.
she's going to hang out with this team. So they have those little short moment where she's been working with this computer like nanotech, and it has AI, and it jumps in, and she has to like beat it back. Then they bounce over, obviously, to people that I'm most excited about seeing, Midnighter and Apollo. They're sitting there watching this organic techno beast that's been like kidnapping telekinetic kids and then stuffing their brain powers into the body of this like hypo wrestler. And while they're sitting there watching this, getting ready to go feed him, Apollo's all up in his feels because he found a pack of matches, and he's like, I don't smoke and you don't smoke, who is it? Tell me who. And Midnighter's just ignoring him the whole time. He's just like, you're being a bitch. Like we're on a mission. Like stop. Like. And so Midnighter, as he says these things, and you keep expecting him, like a normal person in a partnership would turn around and be like, hey, explain things. Midnighter's just ignoring him. And by the end of the story, you find out the matches belong to Manchester Black, and like Midnighter just wasn't explaining to him what was going on because he was saving up, and he was giving Apollo a gift, and the gift is working with Superman because Apollo's always looked up to Superman. There's some other really cool people that are part of this team. Some of them, just, and forgive my ignorance, I'm not familiar with. So there's this witch named June who jumps up in there. Anyway, so they get the team together. And then they all come back, and everybody's like shaking hands with Superman, and it's going to be a fun time. Really excited about this book. They keep saying it's going to be Morrison's last foray in the DC universe. That's to be determined, so we'll see. And then last but not least on my little short stack is that book I was telling you about a couple weeks ago, Killer Queens, which is kind of a pulp take. I still like the little quip they put the sass in assassins. It still cracks me up. This queer brother and sister team are running from their past, kinda, and then get sucked back in because their ex-boss, who is a sentient monkey, wants his ship back, and then they have to deliver. So fun. Really enjoyed it. Gonna be curious to see what they do. That's from Dark Horse. The team on that, I should say, because we're supposed to, is David M. Boer, with art by Claudio Balboni, colors by Harry Saxton, letters by Lucas Gattoni. So fun stuff. Really, really cool stuff.
Nice.
Like I said, neo-queer kind of pulp sci-fi adventure that just ticks some boxes, and it's just funny.
Yeah, nice.
The dude, the brother in the book's just relationships aren't his thing. He's just plowing his way through space. He's trying to put as many notches on the headboard as he can. But nice. So just good books all around, spanning the gamut, as it were. Before we get into our kind of roundtable book that we were going to talk about, a trailer dropped this week, and we got our, well, I can't even say it's our first glimpse because apparently the trailer was leaked before this, which I didn't watch the leaked trailer.
I didn't either. It's the same trailer. It was just leaked.
So
it was just leaked early.
Yeah, I didn't know if there were any differences to it or not, which led Marvel to drop the main trailer of Spider-Man No Way Home. And we got our first glimpse of seeing that, and its tie-in to all the different universes, and we got to see Molina, a glimpse of him. Again, I don't know if this is the first glimpse of him or not that we've seen as Doc Ock. Did we see that before? Was that teased before?
No.
Okay,
no.
So this is kind of a new thing. And just the multiverse. So how did the trailer make you feel? Like, tell me about the warm and fuzzies it gave.
I mean, it looks great. It looks great to me. I'm really interested to see what they do with it. I mean, this is obviously the multiverse. Yeah, what they're going to do with this movie, the story. How long is this movie going to be?
Right.
It's the first thing I'm like, to do all these things in one movie. I don't know. I can't help but wonder how long it's going to be.
Yeah.
And how it ends. What does this do for the Marvel universe as a whole? Is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to see Doc Ock again. I love some Doc Ock, man. So some Doc Ock. It'd be interesting to see what they do with the Lizard. I can only assume that the Lizard is going to be in this because, that's kind of been the point. The whole movie is to bring all these
almost a Sinister Six
villains, back in the same movie. How they do that. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what this movie is going to be. It's going to be quite the spectacle, I can only assume.
Yeah, I had that same thought, specifically with the time, and part of me wonders, and I mean, who knows what they're going to do. Part of me wonders if so many of these little glimpses of these other characters we're going to see are just basically cameos, as they just show you, like, diving through the multiverse. I mean, they could do so many things with it.
Yeah. I can't help but believe they're cameos or slightly more than cameos. It can't be
right.
I don't know, man. But I can't believe they're going to be short appearances,
right,
one way or another.
They've got to be impactful, but they can't, like you said, they can't take the time to explain everything. But I mean, we've kind of seen a little bit of this concept, at least already, in the Into the Spider-Verse, the animated film, where they had all of these different multiversal spider people show up. And to me, that's still like one of the best, not only Spider-Man things we've gotten, that's just, and one of the best animated features that we've ever seen. I love that movie. Like, the rewatchability factor of that is up there.
Yeah.
Especially with animated films, because I'm not prone to rewatching a lot of animated film. Usually it's kind of a one and done, or I'll go back and see it. Which to be fair, I'm not prone to rewatching most of the MCU stuff. Like, I'd say arguably 60 to 70% I've only seen once or twice.
Probably the same for me.
Now there's a few movies, Winter Soldier, I can rewatch that.
Yep.
Anytime. Endgame, I can rewatch that. I've seen that a dozen times. But I don't rewatch a lot of stuff. But Into the Spider-Verse, I've definitely rewatched and will rewatch numerous times. And yeah, I'm just always happy to see what they're doing. These new things. There was it the Shang-Chi trailer that came out recently that you said that looked amazing, but it still didn't make you interested? I remember you saying that.
No, that wasn't the Shang-Chi trailer. That was me referencing the Eternals trailer.
Maybe that's okay.
It looked great. Yeah. When I say it looked great, I mean the appearance was amazing.
Right.
But as far as like the compelling nature, I'm just like, okay, I don't know, man. It's weird for them to throw. I don't know who's going to be. I don't know, man. What they do with that movie is going to be really interesting because they've got to be aware this Eternals movie is very, very different from all the other Marvel movies. They've not built it up, and it just feels like it's random and dropped on us.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I think after we see it, at least I'm hoping, like, I'm trying to be optimistic, I think we're going to realize the weight that the film carries. I hope it opens up a whole, I hope it opens up something to the book.
I do too.
To the thing.
I do too.
The only thing I can compare it to with the cinematic universe is kind of Guardians of the Galaxy, because before Guardians, nobody, at least the mainstream audience, nobody really knew who Guardians of the Galaxy were. Like, they weren't a mainstay. Iron Man. Nobody read Iron Man for years, but everybody kind of knew who Iron Man was.
Nobody cared.
Right. Nobody gave a shit. But with Eternals, I feel like that's kind of, because even Roger was asking me, like, who are these people? Like, why is there like that dude who's almost Superman? And I was like, well, yeah, they are kind of analogs a little bit or at least the one character is. But I think there's going to be some gravity that they throw into that film that's going to. I still hope to see the introduction of the mutants or the introduction of the Fantastic Four. Like, I hope that this is the keyhole that they work those into, just so we get an answer, because I'm tired of speculating, and I'm tired of speculation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the head of Marvel Studios has said that we're going to have to wait a long time for mutants.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for any of that in Eternals.
Yeah. I think we might see something to do with the Fantastic Four, or something that alludes to them. I mean, this is the start of the what is it, the fourth
Phase 4.
Phase 4. So it would kind of make sense, but again, it's just speculation.
It's weird.
At the end of the day, who gives a shit what they're doing? I'm ready for a fun ride.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about Shang-Chi, and thank you for correcting me on pronunciation on that. I'm trying to do better with that, but I'm looking forward to that. I want to see this. Yeah. I want to see them. I don't want to use the word fix, but I want to see them kind of redirect themselves on the 10 rings, and how that they presented that in Iron Man, with it being kind of just a joke, or at least a facade.
Yeah.
And going back and fixing that. Again, I don't want to use the word fix. Just redirecting to where the 10 rings actually have some type of
gravity.
Yeah, some type of providence in the Marvel universe, and some actual threat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man, it's interesting stuff. Plus,
that actor's hot. I know you don't share that, but that's not for you, but that's for me. he's delicious. So you want to talk about comics? Let's get back into it. This past week, a book came out, and it was something that when I saw it in previews, I was like, oh man, I cannot wait for that. I got to read that. And then I forgot about it, and I forgot to put it on my pull list. And fortunately, one of our friends reminded me that this was coming out. And so I grabbed it, and I reached out to you guys to see if y'all wanted to read it. And I'm glad I did it. It was not at all what I expected. And that book is none other than Echolands. And this is obviously the first issue of a story arc called Hope's Crucible, by the team of J.H. Williams III and W. Hayden Blackman, with Dave Stewart on colors and Todd Klein on the letters. That's almost a dream team, just on paper. That is a powerhouse of that's one of the best letters, one of the best colorists, one of the the best artists working in comics, and Hayden Blackman just dropping his magic on the book.
Yeah.
As just kind of a creative team. And so again, we're going to spoil some things as we talk about this if you haven't picked this book up. But as we always do, Matt, what's the 30,000 foot view like for you on the book?
I mean, it looked incredible. Of course, it's in this different, I guess you would call it a sideways format.
Yeah, landscape.
Which essentially is like a widescreen. Feels like a widescreen movie that you're watching. Mm-hmm. Love the artwork in it. The narrative was easy to follow.
Yeah.
Is so I give it a thumbs up overall, and then I'll save everything else for afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. This book was not at all what I expected we were going to get.
Really?
And I didn't really know what to expect. So I had no idea. Like you said, the formatting is different, and that took me off guard a little bit when I first got it. I was like, oh, that's like, I did not. Who knows what you're going to get, but I thought the book was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. It's both it felt fresh, like it's not a novel take, but it felt incredibly fresh. It reminded me of some things that I have, there were little bits of it that reminded me of things that I've seen before and read before, but I didn't feel like it was derivative at all. I am a huge fan of J.H. Williams III. I don't know what demon or god he impressed that gave him the abilities to throw together the panels, but and I'll talk more about this later. I got to remember 30,000 foot view. I'm bad about that. But this is the same team that made me fall in love with Batwoman. His artwork, J.H. Williams' artwork in Sandman Overture, almost, it's one of those things that didn't actually make me weep, but like single tear. Mm-hmm. It's so pretty. It just makes you, get emotional. But no, dude, I thought this was fun. I thought it was really fun, and I can't wait to see where they go with this. So you might be thinking at home, well, tell me about the story. What's this book about? The book follows this young woman named Hope. And Hope, started out a simple life, kind of a woodland girl, grew up with her parents in a cottage, but something happened. Something started to change. She was overcome with a power or a possession, something online called that she calls the Red. And the book kind of subtextually alludes to the fact that she might have killed her parents, like she might have had this explosion because something happens and she moves off into the world and she forgets. The line is, afterwards I ran to hide, to forget my parents and myself. So something incredibly bad happened that she is running from. That was this kind of emergence of the Red, and she calls herself the Red. And so obviously this has led her places in life, but it's almost become kind of like a Phoenix Force, I think. But she said, but it wasn't always that way. So the book kind of goes back a little bit to kind of tell you where she got to where she is now as she's narrating the story. And on the outskirts of what is San Francisco in a universe and in a time that's not ours, the world has kind of this supernatural bent to it, and it's almost a feudal system. There is this wizard that has taken over and runs things, and Hope has joined kind of this thieves guild, and she's starting off with a little petty thief thing, but she steals something from the wizard. That, of course, invokes the wrath of the local police. They come after her. They chase her down. And as they're chasing her through this kind of called a marketplace with all of this wonderful weirdness, she unlocks a cage of birds and she's trying to get away from the cops. And she runs into a friend named Kor. Kor is this giant behemoth of a barbarian fellow, carries a battle axe. And he's like, what did you do now? And she's just like, dude, I was just nicking stuff for kicks, but hey, these coppers are chasing me and I need your help. And so a brawl ensues. Inevitably they hold their own, but the numbers game is against them, so they have to run. And they hit a back alley as they run past all of these cool things, which we'll get into when we talk about more of the visuals. They run down this back alley that they think is an escape, but things have changed. Apparently, the city, as its attachment to magic or just being awashed in something akin to magic, rearranges itself, kind of like the stairways at Hogwarts, if you're a Harry Potter fan. And the alleyway that was supposed to be an escape hatch for them just is gone. In its place is this wall with kind of Egyptian hieroglyphics displaying, Horus and some of the other gods. And so they kind of come to a dead end, and it looks like, game up for Kor and Hope. As the cops catch them, they're like, what we do to people like you, what the wizard, this wizard named Taros Demond makes us do. We're going to cut off your hand, and we're going to score and burn a giant T on your face, so everybody knows what you've done. But they've got Hope backed against the wall. And I remember earlier when I said that there was something that happens to Hope, that she's running from, this power, this thing that she calls the Red. If you quarter a caged animal, bad things are going to happen. And she's staring at these cops, and all of a sudden, just they explode, like they viscerally and gooily explode, like it looks like a bomb went off in their brains. And she doesn't know how to explain it. Kor doesn't know how to explain it. They just know that they need to get the fuck out of Dodge. And she passes out, like, from this expenditure of energy, the shock of it all. She just drops. But Kor carries her, and they go find some safety. While all this is going on, the wizard is looking for the thing that was stolen from him. And he has this figure, which we come to find out he calls his daughter. I think that's probably more of a title than it is a physicality. But she is the daughter is tracking Hope because Hope has stolen this thing that that she says is a gem, and tracks them to the alleyway where she finds the carnage and the gore of the leftover cops. That's just strewn everywhere. Again, just massive, bloody, just icky explosion. And so she dials up the wizard using like a magic rock that comes out of her arm. Probably a microchip that was put in there by a vaccine. So she calls up the wizard and just like, hey, I haven't found your gem yet. And he's like, well, you need to. And she's like, but I don't think you're going to care when I tell you what this thief can do. And he's like, you don't think I'll care because you don't know what that gem unlocks. Find my shit and get back to me, or bad things are going to happen. And so in a really cool scene, this figure, this woman who's like shrouded in black, she's wearing this robe with the symbol of a red arrow, which all of the wizard's people kind of have emblazoned on them. She pulls out her eye and tells her eye to track the DNA. And so this eyeball just kind of, flicks and flitters and then flies off and is tracking Hope's DNA, something, and it tracks them down to this local inn that Hope and Gore have came to kind of have a drink, refresh. They're gonna get their bearings. They're gonna try to sell this thing that Hope has stolen, and Gore's pissed at this point. He's just like, how could you do that? You know how dangerous that was. They're gonna come after us. We're all doomed. And she's like, no. Like, when people find out that we're willing to steal from the wizard, from this evil, awful, terrible tyrant, then you think about the job that the Thieves Guild is going to hand to us. They're just going to give us, dude, we're going to be loaded. Like, I've just unlocked so many pathways for us. And of course, he's like, yeah, that's cute, but you can't make a living when you're hanging from a rope. Like, and she's trying to tell him to calm down because there's no way they can track them. They don't know where they're going. They're just going to get out of Dodge. They're going to go set up shop someplace where they can hit all of the boroughs that are, at once, and they're going to become like underground royalty. And there's this kind of cowboy figure who's like, yeah, you know what, this is a great plan, I'm in, and he's standing next to a door, when all of a sudden a sword thrusts through our boy's chest, and it's this tracker, this woman, this daughter of the wizard, with a group of, I guess, specialized, I don't know really what you want to call them, Death Eaters. They are I think they call them the War Dogs, is with what you remember what they refer to them as, Matt?
No, I mean, they're basically like a, Gestapo.
Yeah, they're the SS, right? They're Death Dogs is what they call them. And she tells them, like, cripple the girl in the red cloak, which is Hope. She, all throughout this, she has this kind of Red Riding Hood looking thing going on with her image, but kill the rest. And an all-out bloody brawl ensues, just like you would expect. But again, you've got somebody with an incredible powerful force that they can't control, backed into a corner, and explosions happen. When it happens, it knocks everybody else explodes. All of these death dogs are broken, but the one figure, oppositional figure, I should say, I don't think it killed any of her friends, any of Hope's friends, like Gore or anything, is the wizard's daughter, and she is more than what you might think. She is a being of magic, explicitly a being of magic in herself. The book ends by taking you kind of back out of the story, and it shows you this fortune teller staring over a crystal ball. This metaphysicist soothsayer who is an alien, as we might think of an alien. Looks like landed at Roswell or something. But she is this figure is giving you an insight to what we're going to see in the second episode, second issue, something with scales and something to do with the sea, and then that's where the book ends, or at least that's where the story ends. The back matter in this is plenty. There is a lot in here to read. They have there is a mock interview with with Taros, with this dark wizard, and this character named Alias 5, who is a reporter who is giving an interview, a much coveted interview that Taros has not ever given before, that kind of gives you some insight into who he is and how he came to be. It's kind of almost this rags to riches story. He started at the bottom and now he runs the world, but he's not going to give one of the questions he said is there are some who claim that you can read thoughts and make buildings vanish, even resurrect the dead, and rumors are floating around, like the people are curious, how did you get your special abilities? And he's like, I'm not telling you that. Like, why would I why would I want to give you some insight to it? There is a little short a page that gives you a deeper look into the world that J.H. Williams has created. It explains some of the, like Mr. Lucky's Takeout Tidbits, this little restaurant with this cat figure that looks like something you would see in a Chinese or a Japanese restaurant. That, you know, you put a coin in and one little paw moves, which you actually see in the story where they're like running through the marketplace. You see this giant figure of the cat standing there on the rooftop, and so it just gives you a little bit more of the texture of the world. And then there's a few interviews that they're calling an afterword, that both Hayden Blackman and J.H. Williams talk about how this story came to be. This is a story that was a decade in the making, that predated that team, especially. It predated their work on Batwoman, predated Sandman Overture, and how all of these projects worked to derail Echolands. I thought that I don't know what to call it. The format, the way that this book was crafted, the way it was put together was just really brilliant. And yeah, inside it gives you some insight into maybe some of the struggles that J.H. Williams had in working in a new format in this kind of widescreen, as you called it, Matt. Mm-hmm. This landscape format, which I never thought about, you know, how different that would be. But with somebody whose panels and his page composition is so intricate, like, yeah, that's got to be something that if you're used to working in an 11 by 14 format, to kind of flip the script and work in this different thing, that's got to be hard. So, like, you know, I've kind of given the layout of the narrative. So get into a little bit of some of the stuff that you were wanting to talk about.
So the main character, so you referenced, you know, the beginning of the story. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, she's Little Red Riding Hood.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. I mean, the wolf is right there in that panel. So yeah, I mean, she's Little Red Riding Hood, and this is taking place. This is like, of course, they're in Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, and in that scene there you see all these fictional characters throughout the wharf. I mean, they're right down the front center is Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. You've got a vampire. You've got a character that looks a hell of a lot like Adam Strange. Yep. And there are all different kinds of characters of fiction living together in some version of the United States. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting, they drop you into this world without any setup whatsoever, and just kind of figure that out along the way, which was interesting, instead of having like an opening paragraph or two that you see some books do. So it's interesting to see that technique. This widescreen landscape format was interesting as well. You don't see that very much. I mean, it's pretty rare in my experience. After reading this, it kind of makes me wonder if we start seeing more of this, because it seems like on the surface anyway, without knowing the mechanics of it all, an easy way to have like a unique format that makes your book stand out somewhat, and it gives you a I don't know, what could be conceived as an advantageous way to illustrate panels versus the standard comic book format, without going to the oversized magazine format, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
That you're seeing a lot of those. So, I mean, the story was good. It's frankly probably one I won't stay on. Just the setting, these kinds of dystopian stories I'm just not altogether into.
Well, you've said in the past that one of the things that you don't like, and we saw an exception to the rule not too long ago, is like fantasy melded with reality, like with our real world. And so I wondered how that was going to kind of treat your experience of the book, knowing that this was like in something that's supposed to be San Francisco.
It feels weird, but that's not a big hang up for me with this story, because that statement, what I'm referring to is like, if Little Red Riding Hood was living in
Little Rock,
San Francisco as it exists today, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's where I'm like,
Conan comes to New York City.
Yeah, those kind of things where it's just, weird to me, and I just can't get into those stories. Again, it's just a personal preference. There's no real justification for that.
No,
but that I didn't find that. It's just this dystopian, type story. I don't know, man. I'm just not into them. But the quality of the book is, I've got there's nothing to criticize as far as the quality of the book goes. It's just a genre that, I'm amongst all the other books I'm reading and frankly just looking for reasons not to take on another one.
Yeah.
That's just where it falls.
I mean, it's a $4.99 book, so it's like $5. If you're paying full price, it's $5. So that's nothing to like. That's that, and you consider the number of books that we bring home. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So one of the things I thought was interesting, like you said, in the page that we're talking about that shows what I'm calling the marketplace, the wharf. Sure. J.H. Williams does all these things that you're talking about, and he does them in different styles. So, like you said, there's Frankenstein and the vampire standing right there, and they're very much, gray and whitewashed. The person who is akin to Adam Strange is more of a hyper realistic, done in marker. If you look at the bottom, like, I'm fairly certain that's supposed to be Clint Eastwood.
It does feel that. I felt the same way, like Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, it's Clint Eastwood in kind of almost a. I'm trying to think. Like it's not quite a Sean Phillips style, but there's something that looks a little bit like that, but maybe more cartoony. The hamburger that's straddling what looks like the Flatiron Building, because apparently the Flatiron Building's in San Francisco in this world.
Yeah,
is done in a Scrochy style. You get into some of the ogres and things. It's this.
It looks like Tintin as an older man.
Yeah,
is in there. Maybe that character's. I feel like, is that Tintin supposed to be?
Well, there's Sandman.
Sandman. Yeah.
There's Edward Scissorhands in the back somewhere. I saw him earlier. There's just so much in there. To unpack, and he does not each character, like some of them are similar styles, but he does, like, he flips his drawing style. Like there's even a little bit, like if you look into the robot, and like I said, this ogre, there's this hyper detailed, sketchy, almost a Shaolin cowboy kind of feel to it. There's just he went to town on this book, and you can see why it took him so long. There's this image that looks like it's almost a Coptic marker version of, I think it's the head of a Transformer. Like it looks like it might be like Megatron's head or something, like without his little helmet. Like, so he switches up the style. I thought that was incredible. Just the amount of his ability to flex.
Yeah,
was fun. And then there's only a few pages where you get one of my favorite things, because he plays with these kind of standard panels as much as he can with this widescreen format, but there's a few pages where you get this beautiful layout where he plays with panels and he frames them as if they're windows in old Norwegian style mead hall or something. And you saw a lot of that in the way that he plays with panels in like Sandman Overture. He does this really cool thing. Some of it is very reminiscent of what you saw in Swamp Thing once Alan Moore and that creative team took it over. So he just really showing off that he's a powerhouse of his art in this. The last kind of weird format thing I saw like this was Barrier. When that came out, I don't know if you remember that. It was it Brian K. Vaughan who did that? I forget. Barrier was this book. It was in a
yeah, there was a BKV book that had a format like this, but I don't remember the name.
But it was bigger. Yeah, it was bigger, and most of it was in Spanish.
Yeah, well, it was originally a digital book that was released. Yeah.
And part of me wonders, and that's where I was going with this, because part of me wonders if you're not going to see this more and more. And I think we talked about this when Barrier came out. It's perfect for the transference to digital. When you think about most of our computers, like for people who read on a pad, maybe not so much because a pad is more like a standard like book page.
Yeah.
But like I read comics on my laptop. Fortunately, my laptop doubles into a pad.
Yeah.
But if I'm just reading comics on my laptop, like this widescreen format is perfect for that without doing that stupid like panel where like it takes you panel by panel, which I hate.
Yeah.
It's just lazy. Like you read
this screws up the whole flow of reading. I can't do the panel by panel thing.
Well, and it messes up the structure. Like the panel in the page in of itself tells a story. Like where like, you think about the mechanics of
like try to do panel
to
panel with this book.
Right.
Impossible.
No, it just doesn't work. The way a page is laid out with the triangles and how they lead you and stuff, that's done purposefully, and you're missing so much of the craft elements of this. I'm definitely staying on this book. I was going to say too, because you were talking about it being Little Red Riding Hood, from the very beginning it took me back to this mindset and this place of fables, like Bill Willingham.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's some Bill, and Bill Willingham I know is kind of a problematic dude these days because he's kind of crazy, but but like Fables is one of my favorite stories, and it took me back to kind of that place, and so that was a great way to frame my mind, and kind of put myself in this story. So I'm definitely on it. It was a refreshing read. Again, like we're talking about all these things, that's where I say like it references other works. I feel like I think it's on purpose, but it's not derivative.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like something was copied and pasted, or like he was trying to just replow old ground.
Yeah.
It was both fresh and yet kind of weirdly nostalgic for me. And I can't wait to see. I don't mind these dystopian stories, but it's not. I'm kind of like you. It's not my favorite thing. But this one was cool. Another thing I thought was really neat in this packaging that they did. They give you a playlist.
Yeah, I read through every one of the songs.
I did too. And I was gonna like some of them I know. So these are they call it the Sounds of Creation #1, J.H. Williams III's music playlist while working on this specific chapter. He listens almost all of them, he says, on vinyl, which has got to be like that. I thought was interesting because as a newfound person who has just recently discovered the magic of vinyl, it's not like you can skip tracks. It's not like it's going to autoplay. Like you have to get up every 15-20 minutes or so and flip the record.
Yeah.
And so from an artist, I have to think it's interesting that he listens to vinyl while he draws, because if you think about getting into the groove and the flow of and immersing yourself into your work, you got to stop every 15 minutes, get up, go flip the record or put it on a new record or something. So I thought that was an interesting take. I didn't think an artist would want to do that. Or maybe they do. Maybe that keeps his back from hurting. Maybe that's something. Like maybe it's done purposely. I just kind of wondered why.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just old school. And
word is, if you go back and start listening to vinyl on a good audio player, man, the faults with digital really start coming out.
I love it.
Yeah,
I do, and like
audiophiles say vinyl's the way to go.
Well, without trying to sound hipsterish about it, because hipsters, but like I bought the Audio Technica, which is a good brand, the P120. I've got it set up right behind this kind of just hardback chair that I sit in while I read at my home. I've got the speakers right behind behind my head, and you're gonna get kind of the ticks and the little things as the vinyl spins and it picks up on it, but it just is like silk going across your ears.
Yeah.
There is something incredibly magical about it that you don't get. Or that I don't get from anything else. And it's not just, it's, some famous bands. I've picked up some stuff of music I've never heard before.
Yeah.
But especially with the way I've got it set up to where those speakers are just right behind my head. And it's not blasting. Like I'm not murdering my eardrums. It's just at a decent decibel level. Mm-hmm. But it just, there is something about that in its pure form, like directly recorded, that just does something for the music.
Yeah.
And that's true from anything. Like I've been listening to a lot of Rolling Stones this week because the drummer of the longtime drummer of the Rolling Stones just passed away.
Yeah.
But I listened to Lady Gaga because my husband's a huge Lady Gaga fan. Her stuff sounds phenomenal, and I've heard these albums, both of them, like hundreds of times, radio, MP3s, you name it. But it is also cool. Like I read a couple pages, I get up, I flip the record. Were there any of the music, any of the songs on here that kind of surprised you? Or kind of took you by that you wouldn't think?
I mean, I didn't go in it. Nothing surprised me because I had no expectations when I started reading them. There were a few. I remember there were a few that kind of stood out. Killing Joke kind of stood out.
Yeah.
Mastodon
That
stood out.
That was the one because.
Yeah.
So if you're going through the list, like he's listening to a ton of Bowie. He's listening to The Who, Jefferson Starship, ELO. He's listening to some soundtracks like the Westworld soundtrack, Glass Animals, and then so all of this stuff that's like rock, classic rock, kind of easily listening. Bowie being weird and funky, all set in the from the 50s to the 70s. And then you've got Mastodon.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, J.H. Williams goes hard.
Yeah.
he's just getting some distortion.
Motorhead, Perfect Circle. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see Perfect Circle was on the list.
Yeah. It's an interesting. And then closely followed by Funkadelic.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden is in here. So yeah, it's
the Cars.
It's an eclectic. It's an eclectic mixture. It's funny.
Mott and the Hoople.
Yeah.
But I kind of appreciate that. It makes me respect him, just the wide range of the music that he listens to.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if any of them, if he, like, this is one of those things, like, I just wish we could, like, talk to him. Does he pick the music that he wants to listen to based on the mood he wants to feel while he's drawing?
Mm-hmm.
How does that, like...
Or does he pick music to put him in a certain place?
Right. That's... Yeah. So, a few years ago, I was talking to Van Jensen, Flash artist, and we did an interview with him, and he was saying, like, there's sometimes, like, when I'm doing an action scene and I want a certain, like, when I'm writing it and I want a certain emotion to be conveyed on the page, I will, like, he knew the artist that he was working with, and he kind of knew where they stood politically. He kind of knew where their thoughts in the world. I would put in there, imagine in this case, he was like, imagine a Trump rally. Imagine like you're with these people who are super into this, and like you're just in it and you can't get out. And that's what I want you to put on the page. Like he purposely wrote things that he knew would piss off the artist. And so the artist would draw mad, and it would get something out of him. And I never even thought about that. Because,
Here's page 3. Your mama's fat.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, because I mean that's who you're like when you're writing comics, and Bendis spoke about this in one of his craft books that he wrote. When you're writing comics, you're not writing to the general public. You're not writing to the people who are going to read the comic. You are writing to the artist. Yep. The artist is your audience. Yeah. And I think that was incredibly. I think that's akin to the idea of like listening to a certain thing as an artist to put yourself in a certain headspace. This is the kind of book that makes me like. I think what I love about this book the most is it makes me think about these things outside the book. Mm-hmm. It makes me think about the world that these creators and people who craft these things live in, and I love that ephemera. Like that is the kind of stuff I live for. So I highly recommend it. I know you said you're not sticking on it just because it's it's just not your cup of, but it certainly sounds like you appreciated just what it was.
Well done.
Yeah,
well done.
Yeah. So. Definitely check this out. Again, that is Echolands, Hope's Crucible, the first chapter. J.H. Williams III, W. Hayden Blackman, Dave Stewart, and Todd Klein. Well done. Really well done. Just going to have to go reread this a couple more times because there's a lot in here. Mm-hmm. Did you ever read their Batwoman series?
No.
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
So pretty. Well, tell me, my friend, about something that you did read this week.
Something I read this week from Albatross Funny Books, Lester of the Lesser Gods.
This is the second Albatross Funny book that you've tapped into.
Coincidentally. It's written by, there's 3 writers on this. It's Eric Powell, Lucky Yates, and Matt Cushing. And the art was done by Gideon Kendall. This is says it's a one-shot on the cover. And the cover is what grabbed me. Cover is interesting.
Just like the cover.
Yeah. Check it out. I'm not even going to begin to try to describe this cover.
It's like Meatloaf had a baby with Danzig.
That's a very, very apt description. Eric Powell did the cover, at least the cover that I have. So this story, are you familiar with the book, The Confederacy of Dunces?
Yes.
Have you read it?
I have not. I know what it is, but I have not.
So this is very reminiscent of Confederacy of Dunces. I highly recommend that book.
Okay.
It's one of the only prose books I've ever read where I was laughing out loud.
Okay.
There's an interesting story behind that book. It reminds me of Robert E. Howard. The author of that book was an English professor, and he was clinically depressed. And he was writing that book, when he had the spare time.
Mm-hmm.
He committed suicide. He ended up committing suicide.
Okay.
After his friends started going through his stuff, they found the manuscript, had it published, wins a Pulitzer.
Was it finished? So he finished before he passed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an outstanding book. Became, great commercial success and critical success.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's a really sad story, but this book is laugh out loud funny. The main character is a character who is got this huge sense of grandiosity that he is in no way entitled to.
Right.
He is in no way earned. He has this huge sense of grandiosity, oblivious to the world that he lives in the situation of which he has put himself as an adult male. Very much like this character in this book. This character, it looks like he is a man in his, let's say, mid-20s, and he has got this sense of grandiosity about himself. He sees himself as a sword and axe-wielding warrior. He is fighting the evil hordes in this post-apocalyptic setting.
Mm-hmm.
And what you find out as the story goes on is he is the offspring of Odin. Turns out Odin was on an adventure on Earth, got himself lost, stopped into a bar to ask for directions, and had sex with a woman in the bathroom.
As Odin.
And our main character is the offspring of said tryst.
Okay.
So he has got the grandiosity and feeling of self-importance of Odin, yet he is what you would commonly call white trash.
Right.
Living with his mother, working at a pizza restaurant. And meanwhile, he practices fighting with his sword in the front lawn, does some LARPing with his friends at the local park.
I was just sitting here thinking, oh, this dude LARPs.
yeah, which he does. All of which he speaks in these grandiose terms, and he conveys around town on a scooter, and he calls it his Valkyrie.
Yeah.
And when people make fun of him, he's like, my Valkyrie will be given the respect she deserves, so, for example. Well, demon hordes end up invading Earth, and he is like, finally, the world is coming around to my great purpose. This is my purpose, and the world is finally aligned with it.
What's the Loki line? I'm burdened with glorious purpose.
So he's fighting these demon hordes, faces down the great demon himself. Odin reveals himself to him and bestows on him his Odin spear, for which he can wield. The dialogue, it's completely absurd.
Yeah.
The dialogue is really good. It's really funny. I picked it up not really knowing what to expect. The cover sold me, and it really exceeded my expectations. I went into it thinking it'd be silly, but this is like very clever,
right? Type
silly, lighthearted though. It just doesn't take itself seriously.
You can tell they had fun making.
Yeah. The dialogue in this book is so funny.
I haven't read it, but this just sounds like the kind of story that a bunch of people like me and you, Craig, we would sit around on a night and have a few beers and make up a story like this.
It feels like that's what somebody did.
Well, and in large part, I think you have to, there's a different. It's probably self-referential, knowing some of these guys and some, just.
I'm not going to accuse them of that.
No, I think that there's a little bit of that poking fun at our own, so we're comics fans. We've been to we've been to Comic Cons. We can pick on comic fans. Like there's a little bit of referential comedy in there, and self-actualization. But like it's kind of like the what is that hair metal band from LA that pokes fun at hair metal?
Sex Panther.
Like it's just like we're in this world, and we're going to talk about the things about it that make it both fun and just from the outside like unredeemingly ridiculous. But that's what gives it some redemption. It just sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's the dialogue is there's a really good example of dialogue. Our main character is facing down what appears to be Satan, and as he's chopping his way through some minions, he faces Satan himself, and Satan says, "Who dares defy my minions? What is this bullshit?" So,
wait, is this a Tenacious D story come to life?
Yeah. I mean, it's got a very Tenacious D feel to it. That kind of absurdity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real. If you're a fan of sword and sorcery, I think you're gonna like this. It's just a really funny take on.
I'm gonna go see if there's any more on the wall.
It's laugh out loud funny.
Yeah, I want to check this out.
It exceeded my expectations. My expectations it would be silly fun, but not quite as laugh out loud funny.
Well, I love stuff like that. Like I like bands like Steel Panther, Tenacious D. This is Spinal Tap. That kind of thing. It's people of that world, people of our world, that just kind of make fun at some of the absurdity of ourselves. And that's what I meant by self-referential. Not that, Nate Powell, because number one, I don't want Nate Powell to come body slam me.
Eric Powell,
sorry. Nate Powell is a different artist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm going to check out that and see if it's on the wall.
It's funny. I would highly recommend it. I hate that Craig's not here to talk about it, because I know he loved this book.
The cover just kills me.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious.
Well, I grabbed a book this week, and I'm going to talk about this with the full understanding, Matt, that you are going to be completely and totally disinterested.
Oh,
this is not a book that you are really like, that you are going to. I think you would think the art is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Story is not a book that you're going to give a shit about.
Oh.
So just full warning as I talk about this. The book is called 1,000 Storms. It's by Tony Sandoval, who I've read some of his work in the past. He's got a very European feel to his work. It is deceptively simplistic. I think it's probably incredibly hard and important. It takes a lot of craft work and craft knowledge to get what he puts on the pages. But if you're looking at it, it doesn't necessarily feel that way. Very simple lines, a lot of watercolor and gray wash and bleed over. He's one of those artists that doesn't need to put a ton of detail down on the page to get what he needs to get done, and he lets your brain fill in the gaps. But the story is about this young girl, and her name is Lisa, and Lisa likes to collect little bones and strange rocks. She is a girl who looks around and sees the magic in nature, people who can pick up a stick and have a gun. That's Lisa. But Lisa, and in this world, it's not just the power of imagination. Like, there is actually magic in Lisa's world, and she's had an interesting life, or at least the way she perceives it. Her mother unfortunately has passed away, and she lives in her father's house, but her father is absent. He goes away and stays away for business. And so she lives with her stepmom and her stepmom's son. And they're not mean to her. I mean, the stepbrother is, but they're not. They don't mistreat her. But it's not her mom. It's not her family. And so she spends a lot of time out in the woods on her own. She does her own things, and she crafts these stories to kind of fill in the gaps of her world. And one day she's out playing, and she's out by the beach, and she reaches down in a puddle and she pulls out this Viking helmet. And I should say she's a girl probably between the ages of 12 and 14. In many ways, this is a coming of age story. It's a sexual realization story, like a post-puberty kind of like in between two worlds. Not quite yet a woman, but not quite yet but not still a girl kind of story. And so she's on her own. She's kind of dabbling in this childish whimsy, and she pulls out this Viking helmet, and she's she's playing as if she's a Viking warrior maiden, and on the beach. And as she's there, all of these little creatures start to come up around her, and these are kind of fey creatures, and they whisper things into her ears, and they show her this tree, and this tree is imagine a slingshot. It shoots up from the ground, but very close to the ground, it branches out into you, like basically you. And they tell her, hey, like go walk through that tree, check out that tree, isn't it cool? And so they guide her over there, and she steps through it, and it takes her to a different world. And when this happened, Tony Sandoval's art goes from being this very fluid, very subtle toned gray wash watercolor work with these muted colors to these pen drawn lines with a little bit more texture, a little bit more detail done with ink, where you can see the rocks look rougher. Everything looks just a little bit more stark. And she comes up to this rock, and this rock has got this skull on it. It looks like it's like a dragon skull. Like it's got these big gnarly teeth and these giant horns. And she collects, neat little bones and pretty rocks and things. So she's like, oh, I want this. And so she starts to tug on it, and it won't come off. And so she's like, okay, so I don't know what this is, but let me just get one of the teeth. And 4 hours later, she finally like undoes a fang and takes it for her own. And she goes and she's like, okay, it's getting close to supper. Let me go back through this portal. Like that, she's kind of like, this is insane.
It's time for supper. Let me go through the portal.
Right. Like, let me just step back through this tree and go back to the real world. And she takes the tooth with her. What you find out is behind that skull, it's a world within a world. That skull is a lock, and it's keeping a dragon, and it's keeping a figure who's very Lovecraftian. They call him the Ojdre, O-J-D-R-E. I'm not really sure how would pronounce that, but like the Odju Jihad kind of thing. And they've kept him and his demon hordes locked away. And she's cracked the seal. Now it's not completely open yet. They can't bust through the door, but they can sense that, okay, there's freedom here. Like, this is our chance. We got to figure out how to break the rest of the lock. But Lisa goes back home, and she's back in the real world, so, the quote unquote real world. And her stepbrother's, he's just got done with his homework. He's got done studying, and he's upset because his stepsister can go about and just have these flights of fantasy and play outside and do her own thing. And she doesn't have to study, yet she makes better grades than him. And so he's pretty sure, as little boys are wont to do, he's pretty sure she's doing witchcraft. Mm-hmm. She's a witch, because there's no way that can happen, because, and so he goes and rounds up his little friends, this little group of ne'er-do-wells who really don't understand girls and don't understand, like, they're not quite on the cusp of things, and they're going to go hunt down the witch.
Might as well be adult men.
Right. Well, yeah. But something very not quite so sinister as it would be with adult men. These are just boys who, they've decided that things are going crazy, and they're part of the He-Man Woman Haters Club, very much a Little Rascals feel to them, and they go hunt down the witch. Like, he goes into a room and searches through it and finds a little skull that she's painted up, and so he's convinced. So he's going to go get his friends, and they're going to go figure out what's going on, because her dad's always away, and he's kind of weird, even though dad's married to this kid's mom. Like, he feels kind of strange, and he's got these bad reputation, around town. And so, like, he's going to go figure this out. Meanwhile, our girl meets a boy. And so there's this kind of emergence, like, attraction, like, never really noticed boys before, and you're kind of cute, and I'm going to get my first kiss. And he kisses her, and she kisses him back, but it's weird, and she runs off and is scared, which plays into a thing later on in the story. Not going to go through the whole thing, just because it's a quick read, but it's a fairly large book. It's about 140 pages, 130 pages. As you might imagine, the things behind the world within the world, these demons, the goat god finds a way to crack through, and he invades the world, the real world. They're able to get through the portal, and she has to find a way to fend them off and protect her friends. And at the same time, her father comes back into town, and he's going to take her to the city to go to a better school. she runs away from the other boy, and he goes and gets a different girlfriend, and it kind of breaks her heart a little bit. But she meets another kid. They kind of fool around a little bit, like tweens want to do. It doesn't not going to show you anything graphic, but it's this kind of sexual exploration and this burgeoning of adulthood. These are kids who are hormonal and things, and so it's this in between world that I think Terry Sandoval, really lays down well on the page. And craft storytelling. At the end of the day, what I love about this story is, on one hand, it's a flight of fantasy. On the other hand, I think the story is just completely and totally a metaphor for the place that kids go when they're different, when they are, they're not like everybody else, when they are over imaginative and they have these flights of fantasy and they want to make up these ideas about their parents. Like some of the townspeople call her, quote unquote, the daughter of the devil. Because her dad is this kind of person. Apparently he sees demons, and so there's, and who knows what that means. Maybe if this is a story more akin to the real world where these things are just a fantasy, maybe her dad has struggles with mental illness and has to go away sometimes for that. Or maybe he's just a weird kid himself who grew up into an adult. But it's a really interesting take on the mindset of people who aren't quite adults, but people who aren't still children, and the places that they go in their heads, and the relationships, the real relationship that they form with their friends, and how at that weird age, like, if you're the story defaults to, I think, heterosexuality in this sense, because I think that's who these characters are. But, I remember being a boy in high school in 7th, 8th grade, and you've got friends who are girls, but they might be your girlfriend, but they might just be a friend, and you don't know how to breach that gap, and you don't know what relationships you're building, and you don't know if you're just buddies or if there's something more, and everybody expects these things out of you, and your body's changing, and, your hormones are raging, and, you don't know what's going on, but you know everything that's going on. This weird kind of whirlwind, this mashup of emotions, and how scary that can be. I think he really does well with putting that on the page. It was a fun read. Again, it's this weird kind of book because it does deal with this kind of sexual awakening. Like I said, she kisses a boy for the first time. They kind of fool around a little bit. But she's not ready for that, and he's not ready for that. But they will be ready for that someday, because that's what happens with adults, unless you're asexual. So it deals with that uncomfortability.
How'd you find out about this book, and what compelled you to get it?
So I'm a fan of Tony Sandoval. I've read a couple of things that he's done before, but I saw this in Previews magazine, and so the book is published by Archaea, and I always, when I'm looking through previews, Magnetic Press. When I look through previews, I don't look at the Marvel stuff first. I don't look at the DC stuff first. The first thing I do is I go to the back of the book. I start checking out these small publishers and start finding these graphic novels and stuff that I read and that I enjoy. A lot of times I can't afford them because they're too expensive, but that's the stuff that I really look at first, because as far as like different comics, as far as people who are pushing the medium or who are just telling different stories, that's where you see a lot of that at. So I wanted to check it out. And so, yeah, it's Magnetic Press, Tony Sandoval. I am, like I said, I've read some of his work before, but it's never been anything quite this big. And so I wanted to see what he was going to do with this. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if it's something I'm going to go back and revisit, but I could be. It reminded me a lot of the story that they made a movie out of a few years ago.
I Kill Giants?
I Kill Giants. It reminded me a lot of that. Not quite as... It doesn't have the emotional gut punch as I Kill Giants, but it has that same kind of tone. Yeah. That same kind of, is this real? Is this not real? Yeah. What world are we living in? And is it real to the person, even if it's not real to me? Yeah. And so I take a lot of value in that, because that's the, that I think is an exploration that we can appreciate as adults, even in taking our very adult things and keeping in mind that the things that happen in other people's heads are real to them, and the way that they think is real to them. And just because we think it's ridiculous, and it's just, there's a fine line there, obviously, but just because a person sees things differently than you doesn't mean you're both wrong or that there's anything wrong with that. I think it's an exercise in empathy,
So, and I really appreciate that. And so, and I could be completely wrong. You might read this book and just really, really fall into it. But it's a little bit more of a quieter story.
Yeah,
I would say. And if you've never seen Tony Sandoval's art, if you've never seen the stuff he lays down on the page, this is kind of like the book we read first. He flexes. He is stylistically adept. He can do things from these incredibly impactful, fluidic watercolor pages with these exaggerated features. Like all the characters in this book, they're exaggerated in the way that like a child is exaggerated. Like, you see a kid with a little bitty body and a giant ass head. Like that's in real life. That's what kids look like. All of these kids are that way. Their eyes are set very wide apart. They're very innocent, but there's something ethereal about them. And then, when he gets into the real world where he's drawing like the landscapes and everything, it's this very European, almost French bande dessinée style with the textures and the details of the wood grain and the rocks, and the way that he juxtaposes the characters to build tension is incredibly well crafted. He does something. It's kind of like a smiley face. You have 3 dots and a curved line, and you know that's happiness. Like that's an emotion there. He does more than that. It's not quite so simplistic, but it's something very much akin to that. He can pack a lot of emotion into just the layouts of these features. If you get a chance, go look at his Instagram page and some of the pinups that he does. And they put some of the pinups and stuff in the back of this book. It's like he likes fantasy. He likes magic. When he draws, I want to say this and clarify, like when he draws women that are meant to be adults, he draws them very sensually, but in that same kind of let your mind fill in the blanks, like they have curves. They are something that are both sexual yet not gross in that way. And as far as like young women are, I think he lives in that world, and so it's really cool. His pinups are great. The way he draws old men, he just draws these exaggerated noses, and they're red on the end, and they're just all wrinkly, and they kind of look like a weird Motorhead version of like the guy from Up. So it's really cool, and he a lot of that just dabbles in fantasy. So go check this out. 1,000 Storms. It's fun. And it's one of those books that, again, like it leaves you thinking a lot about what they built up with these characters and what was, really, like as I'm reading that book, I'm thinking more about Tony Sandoval than I am about Lisa. Like I'm thinking about, okay, what is he trying to tell me? Yeah. Like, or even if he's not trying to tell me something, what is he saying, and what does that tell me? There's a lot to unpack in it. So thoroughly enjoyed it, and just at the end of the day, it's just eye candy. Yeah. The art is wonderful, especially for somebody like me who likes watercolor. Yeah. Who likes pages that are more fluidic and less rigid and looser. So, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. One of the best things I've read in a while. So, all right, Craig. Going to you, buddy. Crickets. No. Craig did send his well wishes to everybody. He wishes he could be here. He misses y'all, and we miss him. And we will hopefully get him back in here next week. Hopefully he'll be feeling a little bit better. And it's like I know right now, because we're in a pandemic, if you say somebody's sick, you got to clarify he's not like got the vid, and he's not in like on anything. So he just has a little tummy ache, and he'll be better soon. But man, do we have any other ground we need to cover? I mean, now if we want, do we want to have like the 15 minutes of like shit talking Craig since he's not here and can't stop us? I mean, yeah. It's weird to do it when he's not here, since we do it when he actually is here so much. Yeah, that's true. Should we just say nice things about him? I'm not doing that. Oh, okay. I love Craig. It's almost like our pawpaws away. Like we can get into trouble. See, that's my old joke, and he'll punch me for that later. He's too tired. That's true. That is true. Have you noticed he's doing this cool thing with his mustache now? He's like curling it a little bit. Oh yeah. He's riding that wave. Yeah. Like Pop with a. Actually, that makes it pretty cool. Like his granddaughter is gonna like think he's awesome. Like Pop had an awesome curled mustache. Yeah. He's either like Santa or a villain. So, who knows? Well, we got anything else we need to chat about before we get out of here, brother? Just what's coming up this week. Oh, new books. That our new books coming out this week? New books coming out this week. When do they do that? Tuesday and Wednesday is what I heard. Oh, nice. What do we do on those days?
Buy them.
And head to your local comic shop or pull up Comixology, and you pay money for these things.
Yeah.
You don't download them for free unless they are legally downloaded for free, because that makes you an asshole.
Yeah.
And we usually get our books from our local comic shop, which is kind enough to let us record at our local comic shop, which is Kapow Comics over in Sherwood, Arkansas. Shout out to that team and the great stuff that they do. Fine folks. If you're in Central Arkansas, maybe you're traveling through, you need to swing by and dig through a voluminous number of back issue boxes, or check out some insane wall candy. You can do no better. Or if you're a toy collector, or if you collect board games, or your old DVDs or old video games, they got it all.
Yep.
Like, it is a one-stop nerd shop. So shout out to them, and thanks for letting us record here. Well, why don't you tell the fine folks at home what book you're going to grab from that haberdashery next week?
I'm picking up from Dynamite Entertainment, Red Sonja by Mirka Andolfo and Giuseppe Cafaro, I should say. So this is Mother Part 1. Thrilling new ongoing series. Our story begins in a village on fire set by members of the dreaded three-eyed Shesm. When Red Sonja arrives, the only survivor of the flame is a lively child with the curious white tattoos. The child will become Sonja's travel companion on a journey from hardened ice to imposing forest where dangerous secrets wait to be revealed. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mirka Andolfo does with this.
I'm really shocked you picked this book.
Brian.
Completely. Like, just wide-eyed, never saw it coming.
I think you're being facetious.
Yeah, I am. A little bit.
As anybody should be.
It's like, I don't think any of us are allowed to talk about a Red Sonja book anymore.
I would hope you would not have the nerve.
We'll default to you.
Yeah.
We roll out that red carpet for you.
Yeah.
I got 2. Is it okay if I do 2 since Craig's not here?
Yeah, man. I'm not a cop.
You're not going to stop me? Well, the first one is a book that you're going to want this book. You are. And I don't know that our comic shop is going to get it in because it's an OGN. So you might have to go out and order it. This book is who's it come from? It comes from our friends who publishes this book.
Assuming they're our friends.
Well, it's
a big assumption.
Most publishers are our friends, I'll say. Actually, I can't find the publisher. I don't know who does this book. It is called Motorhead, Rise of the Loudest Band in the World, the graphic novel. You, much like myself, are a big fan of all things Lemmy and the Boys. And so I think you're gonna want to check this out. This is by David Calcano. I'll just read you the pitch. Dive into the world of Motorhead's wild 40-year career with this officially authorized, fully illustrated graphic novel crafted by the award-winning animation studio's Fantoons, spanning 144 pages packed with stunning illustration. Motorhead, the Rise of the Loudest Band in the World, tells the legendary story of Motorhead and its legendary frontman Lemmy Kilmister and the band's meteoric rise to becoming one of the most influential rock bands of all time. From Lemmy's early days working at a riding school in the English countryside to the recording of the band's iconic album and first major international success, Ace of Spades. This Motorhead graphic novel chronicles the extraordinary story of the famous frontman's incredible journey as the leader of the loudest band in the world. With this essential piece of Motorhead history and lore, fans will learn more about the band that heavily influenced well-known groups like Metallica, and I'm not going to mention the other name other band that they named. And discover the fascinating tale of the legend himself. Actually, you know what? I will, because I know some of the history here. It says Metallica and the Foo Fighters. Now, when you think of the Foo Fighters, you don't normally think of Lemmy, but Dave Grohl and Lemmy have a very close relation, or had a very close relationship. Dave Grohl actually spoke at Lemmy's funeral.
Yep.
So I think that's worth saying out there. Yeah. Even though I'm not a Foo Fighters fan, I'm not going to say they're a bad band. They're just not my cup of tea. They're just kind of soft. But that relationship was real, and I think I'll throw that out there. So,
Z2 Comics.
Z2 Comics did this. Awesome. Thank you for the assist. And then just because the longevity of these characters are something to celebrate, the 100-page spectacular Aquaman 80th anniversary issue comes out next week, and I'm going to snag that as well, just because I try to get those. Like, I have the Superman and the Batman and the Wonder Woman anniversary, and like, these characters are, they've been around for nearly a century at this point, and I think that's something to be celebrated. So snag that too. It's got all kinds of people worked on this book, as you might imagine. But looks like Ivan Rice worked on this book. Joe Prado does some stuff in there. So there's a bunch of variant covers, like Walt Simonson does a variant cover. Steve Epting, looks like Paul Peltier had some work in this book. Jeff Johns did some writing. Miguel Mendiza does some work on there. So it's action-packed, all-star stuff, and it celebrates the 80th anniversary of Subpar Namor. So, that'll be fun. So go check that out. We hope you have enjoyed spending a little bit of time with us this week. We've enjoyed doing it. We've enjoyed doing this show for you, as we always do. We do it for us. We do it for you. And we hope you find some quality in it. And we hope you go out and buy some of the books that we've spoken about. That's like, if we can, sell a few books for the people who make these things, or for the shops that sell these things, that's the best part of it. And we hope you enjoy those. If you want to see more of kind of what we're reading, or if you want to immerse yourself in a culture where folks will let you know new stuff that's coming out, or they'll talk about movies, they'll talk about games, they'll talk about books, kind of this nerd culture, this geek culture that we enjoy so much, check out our Facebook group. Just type in Southern Fried Geekery in the search bar. We'll pop up, answer a few questions to let us know you're not a robot, and you can join into that world, post things. If you've got a Kickstarter, if you've got a project that you're working on, you can come post it there. Just don't do that thing where you bust in and post 4 times a day and then go away and don't talk anymore. Don't do that. But you can also hit us up on our email. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. Let us know about your project. Maybe if you can send us a comp copy, or at the very least let us know where we can find a blurb about it. Maybe we'll give you a shout out to our listeners, so they'll know they can go support you on your endeavors of comic making. Last but not least, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those platforms. Law school has started back, so I am woefully behind in posting things on those 2 things in particular, because it's just there's only so many hours in a day, and most of those are spinning up with reading case law. So you know what, we hope you join us in those places, and we hope you come back next time. If you get a chance, wish Craig better feelings and get well soon and all that fun stuff. And until we see you and talk to you again, go forth and love some comics.
Hail Motorhead.
Hail Motorhead. Fuck yeah. Did you ever get to see them live?
No, I did not.
Really?
One of my great regrets.
I saw them live in St. Louis about 8 months before Lemmy passed away. And it was both one of the best experiences and one of the most heartbreaking experiences of my life. He was not able to move around a whole lot. Did not miss any beats. He sounded great playing. His voice had aged, but I mean, he had aged.
Yeah.
But shout out, and forgive me because I cannot think of the guitarist's name off the top of my head. Who's played with them forever? I don't know if he was one of the original members, but more than made up for the fact that Lemmy was not able to bounce around the stage and was not able to move a whole lot.
He never did. Yeah. Lemmy always was.
Was he always kind of just?
Yeah, he's always stationary. He would move around a little bit, but no, he was never known to be a guy that ran around the stage.
Okay.
He just stood right there in the mic, stationary for most of the time. Famously, he had the mic high, and he always looked up towards the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was always looking into the lights.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel a little bit better, because like I said, I never got to see them in their quote unquote prime, but the guitars for that band just all over the stage, man, just brought so much energy. And I think, look, Lemmy died 8 months later, so he was feeble-ish.
He was 70 years old.
Yeah, he was aged.
Yeah.
His knees weren't, he had lots of trouble with his knees. But seeing the energy that the guitarist brought to the stage felt like Motorhead.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We could have just spent all day talking about Motorhead.
I know I could.
So let's just pick up that graphic novel and make that a book of the week in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to check that out.
All right. Well, all right. Go home. Do your homework. Bye.
Do your homework.